Olivia Grant gazed out her apartment window at the site in the tree-lined, quiet suburban neighborhood of Greenbrook, North Carolina, illuminated by the early morning sun. She celebrated her birthday today with her twin sister, Vanessa. Olivia gazed at the red-circled date on her calendar and let out a long sigh. After finishing her usual shift at the library, Olivia began preparing for her evening plans. She wore a simple blue suit and groomed her hair. In the glass, she stood in sharp contrast to her sister, Vanessa. Even though they were identical twins, their personalities and lifestyles were drastically different. Olivia has worked as a librarian at the local library for 15 years. She enjoyed her work and welcomed visitors with open arms, finding comfort in the quiet of the book-filled room. It wasn't much money, but it was enough for her simple, straightforward lifestyle. Her apartment, albeit small, was a calm space, with books lining the walls and plants quietly growing by the windows. Meanwhile, Vanessa worked as a sales associate at a posh boutique downtown. She enjoyed being surrounded by expensive goods and leading a flashy lifestyle. Her apartment was spacious, contemporary, and had immaculate, eye-catching interior design. Olivia, it's at 7 o'clock tonight. Don't be late, her mother Eleanor stated over the phone, with the usual tinge of irritation. I know, the Blue Ocean restaurant as usual, right? Yes, Vanessa arranged the reservation. Her mother's voice suddenly brightened as she said Vanessa's name. That girl seems to have prepared a wonderful surprise. Her voice had a distinct tone all the time. I'll be there on time. Olivia hung up and turned back to the mirror. Since she was a little child, Vanessa has been the center of attention in her family. Vanessa was the family's brightest member and the pride and joy of her parents, Walter Grant and Eleanor Grant. Even though Olivia excelled in middle school, Vanessa's cheerleading activities took center stage in family conversations. On the day Olivia won a college literary prize, the talk at the dinner table was on Vanessa's participation in a fashion show. Even in birthday gifts, the difference was noticeable. Vanessa received jewelry and high-end purses, while Olivia received handmade scarves and used books. As her mother used to remark, "You prefer simple things, don't you?" In actuality, however, Olivia's parents thought it was a waste to invest in her. Her mother Eleanor's words, "You are the moon and Vanessa is our sun," replayed in her mind. On the surface, that seemed like a compliment, but in reality, it implied she was a shadow. Even in family portraits, Vanessa and her parents claimed the center, while Olivia stood at the outside. Olivia's eyes landed on a picture of herself with her grandma Dorothy that was in a little frame on her dresser. She was the only one who genuinely recognized Olivia's value. Her grandma used to touch Olivia's shoulder and say, "The time will come when your true worth is recognized, Olivia." Despite Olivia's parents and Vanessa's frequent absences due to their hectic activities, Grandmother Dorothy, who died 5 years ago, spent her last days at Olivia's apartment. Every day, Olivia read books to her grandma while holding her hand. Her grandmother gave Olivia a little wooden box and said, "Olivia, I'm leaving something special for you," as she lay dying. "When the moment is perfect, open this. Your heart will tell you when it's time." Olivia still kept the wooden box at the back of her wardrobe, well guarded. Sometimes she wanted to open it, but she waited for the appropriate moment, recalling what her grandma had said. A newspaper with a story on the financial downfall of her father Walter's business was spread out across the bed. After 3 years of hardship, his construction firm had lately started to lay off workers. Olivia was aware that her parents were struggling financially and receiving smaller pensions. However, her parents still gave in to Vanessa's lavish expenditures and gave her requests top priority. They paid for Vanessa's auto repairs last month, but they denied Olivia's modest request for assistance with apartment upkeep, stating, "We're tight right now." Olivia grabbed her purse and looked for her keys. The room was bathed in a warm orange glow from the evening light coming in through the window. She stopped, unlocked her closet, and grabbed for her grandmother's wooden box before leaving for the birthday dinner. But she stopped in the middle. She said, "Not yet," and walked out of the apartment. Still grinning as usual, she would attend a family supper with mixed feelings, having lived as the family's second fiddle. Olivia stood at the restaurant's entryway and inhaled deeply. Normally out of her monthly pay range, this was one of the best restaurants in the city. She shook her shoulders slightly and looked at her reflection in the glass door before entering. Under Grant, you have a reservation. Please lead the way, the hostess said. With champagne glasses in hand, Olivia approached a table at the rear of the restaurant where her parents and Vanessa were already seated and engaged in conversation. A new jewelry gleamed around Vanessa's throat, and she donned a glittering gold dress. Olivia's blue dress, on the other hand, appeared unadorned. Eleanor, her mother, said, "Finally, you're here," with a hint of reprimand in her voice. It was 3 minutes before to the appointed time, according to the clock. Everyone else is here already, but I'm not late. Now take a seat. Olivia sat down in silence. Wine had been poured, and appetizers were already spread out on the table. Walter, her father, glanced up at last, as though he had just seen her. "Ah, Olivia, happy birthday." "Thank you, Dad." Naturally, the topic of Vanessa's recent events came up, including tales of the famous people she had worked with, the beauty of the beach resort she had been to while on vacation, and her just-acquired branded purse. Her parents smiled as they nodded, listened intently, and asked questions. Olivia's mother just murmured, "Oh, that's nice," as she turned to face Vanessa. When Olivia attempted to discuss library activities or the success of a reading club she had started. When it came time for dessert after the main course, Walter took an envelope out of his pocket. His smile was wide as he handed Vanessa the envelope first. "Now time for birthday presents," he remarked. "For the son of our family," Vanessa read the paper inside the mail with excitement. Her expression brightened. A week-long vacation to a Miami resort by the sea. Really. She gave her parents a hug and applauded. Her mother responded, "This is your reward for all of your hard work." Celebrities stay at that resort. The pool and spa are fantastic. Our financial situation, Olivia pondered. Despite her parents' diminished pensions and her father's faltering business, they were treating Vanessa to a lavish vacation at a resort. She remained silent while mentally estimating that the resort would cost 3 months' worth of her pay. "Now for Olivia," Eleanor said, pulling a little envelope out of her purse. It was obviously thinner and lighter than Vanessa's envelope. Her mother smiled wildly as she gave it to Olivia. "This should be enough for you." Olivia opened the envelope in silence. One vintage postcard of the Grand Canyon was inside. The date on the back indicated that it was older than 10 years, and the corners were somewhat bowed. "You're a library enthusiast." Her mother advised her to use your imagination. "Pretend to be there when you look at the postcard, can't you?" Walter agreed with a quiet laugh. "Books allow you to travel. After all, you're a bookworm." Olivia stared at the postcard and said nothing. A waiter who was walking by scowled at what he saw. He seemed to see the injustice of the family. "Hey, isn't that postcard the one I got as a teenager?" Vanessa stated. She laughed and glanced down at Olivia. "I was going to throw it away since I didn't need it anymore. But now it's become a present for Olivia," she said. "Why don't you use that postcard to experience the sensation of travel? You wouldn't like seeing the genuine thing anyhow. Have you never left the world of books behind?" Olivia remained silent through the humiliation. She had been used to such treatment for 37 years. No one really understood her since the loss of her grandma. However, something was different today. Something inside of her made a choice the instant she accepted the postcard. "Thank you," she muttered. "What is this?" Being courteous all of a sudden, her mom made fun of her. "Usually you'd look dissatisfied." Olivia said, "I'm not dissatisfied," with a smile. "Actually, I have birthday presents for all of you too." Everyone gave her a startled look. Her preparation of gifts was extraordinary. At most, she might gift cheap books or handcrafted cards. "Presents from you?" Vanessa snorted. "You can't buy much with a librarian's salary, can you?" Olivia reached inside her backpack and pulled out a little wooden box. She inherited it from her grandma, Dorothy. "This is what I inherited from my grandma," Olivia remarked. "She instructed me to open it today." "Dorothy?" With indifference, Eleanor said, "What about her?" "Grandmother told me to open it when the right time came," Olivia said quietly. "And today, on our birthday, I felt it was time to open this box." Vanessa and her parents looked on with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. For them, the box likely held a tiny savings passbook, or at worst, some outdated jewelry. But Olivia's look had a power that had never been there before. Gently, she put her hand on the wooden box and lifted the lid. The beautiful illumination was mirrored by the polished grain, and the sound of the box opening seemed to overpower the clinking of plates and the discussions going on around it. There was a little brass key and a yellowed envelope inside. Olivia gently removed and opened the envelope. It was a letter written by her grandma Dorothy. "Dear Olivia," she said softly as she started to read. "If you are reading this letter, it means I am no longer in this world, and you are standing at an important crossroads in your life." Olivia briefly closed her eyes. Her grandmother's voice seemed to be resonating in her mind. "Your heart is where true riches is found. But occasionally, outside money is also required, particularly if it is put to good use." "What does it say?" Eleanor interjected angrily. "Have you inherited anything from her?" Olivia ignored her and carried on reading. "Your future will be unlocked by this key. You alone are aware of how to use it." "What kind of key is it?" Vanessa asked, leaning forward. Her eyes suddenly glowed with yearning. "There is something this key opens," Olivia muttered. "I have something I want to show you all. Would you please visit my flat right now?" Walter scowled. "It's late. Why not tomorrow?" Olivia said, "No, today would be best," in a quiet but very forceful voice. "It's our birthday tonight. Grandmother advised me to open this package today as well." They finally decided to leave the restaurant and go to Olivia's place, despite the fact that her parents and Vanessa were unhappy. Maybe they believed that something precious had been left by their granny. Olivia's parents and Vanessa hadn't gone to her apartment in at least 2 years. The family walked inside the little living area and looked about uneasily. Olivia said courteously, "Please sit down," and made her way to the kitchen. She took off a section of the floorboard, exposing a little safe that had been concealed. "What's in there?" With suspicion, Vanessa inquired. Olivia removed the key that belonged to her grandma and put it in the safe. The lid opened with a click. There was another envelope and an old leather binder inside. Olivia started to explain. "Grandmother told me to do the same thing every week." Dozens of old lottery tickets were nicely stacked when the binder was opened. "Buy lottery tickets with the same numbers every week," Olivia said. "Lottery?" Walter gave a snort. "I had no idea Dorothy was a gambler. What a waste." Eleanor laughed. "As if lottery tickets ever win." Olivia went on, "Grandmother left me specific instructions. Use this combination of numbers and purchase them every week without fail." "And what? You've been doing this for 5 years?" Vanessa encouraged. "Yes, for 5 years," Olivia said. "Incredibly. If you had that much money, you could have made smarter investments," added Walter. Olivia gave a modest smile. Grandmother was a wise woman. She opened the safe and removed the last packet. It had an official seal and was brand new. "Last week," Olivia said, "I purchased the lottery ticket and, as usual, looked up the results." She showed her family the paper after taking it out. It was an official certificate of lottery winnings. It said at the top, "Winning amount, $350 million. Last week, I prevailed. The processes have been finished already." There was utter stillness in the room. Eleanor's face was devoid of color. She looked at the page in shock, and her hands started to shake. "You're joking," she tried to say. Walter became pale and slumped down in his chair. "Is it real?" "Yes, it's real, Olivia," was the cool response. "I chose the lump sum payment, so it comes to about $250 $210 million after taxes. $210? Vanessa couldn't think of anything to say. Her breathing slowed as her gaze remained focused on the winning certificate. Her parents sat there in disbelief, too shocked to talk. The idea that the daughter they had long devalued and regarded as second best had suddenly become extremely wealthy was too much for their hearts to comprehend. "But we're family," Vanessa cried out abruptly. Her voice had a tenderness that had never been heard before. "We'll split it since we're sisters, right? Wouldn't half and half be reasonable?" Olivia shook her head and kept her soft grin. "I've already decided how to use the money." "What do you mean?" Weakly, Eleanor inquired. "We're your parents. You have an obligation to help us." "Obligation?" Olivia's voice became icy for the first time. "I've been the second in your family for 37 years. I was the moon, always a shadow, if Vanessa was the sun." Defiantly, Eleanor said, "That's not true. We also adored you." Simply put, Vanessa was unique. Special. Olivia cut me off. "The entire tale is told by tonight's presents. An antique postcard for me, a lavish vacation for Vanessa. It was a joke." "A joke?" her mother said in a quivering voice. Olivia's eyes filled with tears, but they did not fall. Every Christmas, birthday, graduation, it was always the same. His head was in Walter's hands. "We were mistaken. Please pardon us," Olivia said in a low voice, "because I've come into a large sum of money, only now." A thick stillness fell over the room. Unable to respond, her parents just gazed at the floor. The air was heavy with their sadness and shame. Vanessa's attitude has entirely altered. She got out of her chair and walked up to Olivia. Her voice was pleasant as she asked, "Sister, we're sisters, aren't we? Even though I may have spoken awful things to you, it was just silly kid behavior. From now on, it will be different." Olivia met Vanessa's gaze directly. She could tell that there was longing there instead of true regret. "Vanessa, what did you say today at the restaurant?" Olivia asked in a low voice. "Why don't you use that postcard to experience the sensation of travel? You wouldn't be comfortable seeing the genuine thing." Vanessa couldn't think of anything to say. Her heart was now being pierced by the words she had spoken only hours before. Olivia stated calmly, "Let's discuss how the funds will be utilized, but that's for another day. Tonight is getting late." "Wait!" Vanessa let out a nervous cry. Olivia, however, had already made her way to the door. "Let's get together with financial advisors and attorneys in a week. Then I'll tell you what I decided." Vanessa and her dad sprang to their feet, looking stunned. They appeared to be sleepwalking because of their heavy steps. Eleanor continued to glance back as she made her way to the door, staring at Olivia with a beseeching gaze she had never displayed before. Olivia sighed deeply when the door shut. She looked at her grandmother's soft smile as she took up her picture. She said in a whisper, "Grandmother, you knew, didn't you, that someday this day would come?" Olivia's apartment has been turned into a neat place a week later. Normally occupied by piles of books and plants, her living room was now furnished with a sizable conference table. The space had a somber feel to it because of the afternoon light coming in through the windows. Olivia, her attorney Clive Martin, and her financial advisor Sarah Chin were seated on one side of the table. Her parents, Eleanor and Walter, as well as Vanessa, were sat across from them, looking nervous. Clive stated in a deep voice, "Let's start on time." He wore a smart gray suit and was a calm man in his mid-50s. "I now have complete control over Miss Olivia Grant's asset management. We'll go over the plan today." Following Olivia's victory, a storm had raged through the Grant household for the last week. She had received several calls from her parents, occasionally in tears, pleading with her to support the family. On social media, Vanessa started calling Olivia her dear sister and abruptly started sharing sentimental old anecdotes. Olivia was also aware that they had looked into their family's rights by consulting a local attorney. First of all, Clive said as he went through the papers, "This meeting's contents will be recorded and kept as a legal record at Miss Olivia's request. Please take note of this." Vanessa and her parents looked at each other anxiously, but they didn't say anything. Now, Miss Olivia, would you like to speak? Olivia got to her feet gently. She wore a basic black pantsuit and was dressed a little more professionally than usual without going overboard. She started off by saying, I was unloved and unvalued in this family for many years, in a calm but powerful voice. Birthdays, Christmases, graduations, at every important milestone, I was in Vanessa's shadow. Her mother said, Olivia, but stopped when she saw Clive's harsh expression. Olivia went on, but grandmother was different. Grandmother Dorothy thought I was strong and valued me. The moment will come when your true worth is recognized, she insisted. Olivia hesitated for a moment, taking a little breath. I had trouble deciding what to do with this cash. I could have gotten even. I could have severed our friendship and cut you off entirely. Vanessa bit her lip as her parents' features became white. However, I also learned from my grandma that hatred taints the heart. She gave me the freedom to select as her parting present, in addition to money. What do you mean? Vanessa's voice was small as she asked. Olivia nodded to Sarah, who was using her iPad to see charts on a screen in the room's corner. Calmly, Olivia stated, I will now tell you my decision. All of your company's obligations will be settled, Father. In addition, $5 million will be given to help restore the business. Walter's gaze expanded. This money can only be utilized for reasonable business needs and will be administered as a specific trust fund. Strict guidelines have been established to prohibit speculative investments and excessive spending. Olivia. Walter gasped. I'll make sure my parents have enough money for your retirement. This includes providing a sufficient pension, paying off your mortgage, and covering medical costs, Olivia added. But this will also be administered as a trust fund and paid out on a regular basis. It cannot be given to you in one single payment. Taking out a handkerchief, Eleanor applied it to her eyes. Vanessa's shoulders shook a little as she leaned forward. Anxiety and expectation were mixed together in her gaze. Olivia spoke sternly. I will create a conditional trust fund for you. You will first pay off all of your debts. I looked at the statements from your credit cards. It was more than I had anticipated. Vanessa reddened. Even among the family, her spending patterns had been kept a secret. You will then get a certain monthly sum after that. But there are restrictions. A percentage of your pay must be donated to charity, and you must first undertake money management counseling. Charity. Surprised, Vanessa repeated. Yes, Olivia muttered. Get used to working for other people. The trust fund payments will continue if such is proven. The room was silent. Olivia's relatives couldn't speak. They were overcome by unanticipated kindness, despite their fear of being totally cut off. They were also taken aback by how stringent the requirements were. Does my decision have legal binding power? Olivia inquired. Yes, Clive said with a nod. Everything has been signed and arranged officially. It is impossible to make changes. Why? Eleanor's voice rose abruptly. What's the reason for this? Are you punishing us? For the first time, Olivia's look was one of anguish. When she said, what I wanted wasn't money, but love, it was obvious that she was having trouble controlling her feelings. However, I'm not looking for that anymore. I'm giving back and releasing my own heart in this way. I will use the majority of this money to establish a foundation, she said after taking a big breath, a charity to aid abused children and people from disadvantaged backgrounds. My goal is to make the world a place where everyone feels important. The mood of the room altered with those words. Eleanor's eyes started to well up with real tears. They were tears of profound remorse rather than self-pity. We were wrong, Walter murmured quietly. Olivia, we did terrible things to you. The past cannot be changed, Olivia replied softly. But the future is different. Vanessa sat in silence, but her face had changed. It was respect, not jealousy or greed. For the first time, she got the impression that when she looked at her sister, she saw a sun that had been shining all along rather than the moon she had detested for years. Liv stated, "This concludes the meeting," and she closed the papers. Olivia shouted to the family as they made their way to the door. Next week will see the start of the foundation's operations. Please come look if you're interested. There was a hint of desire in her voice that had been repressed for years. It was a little but fervent desire for comprehension and peacemaking rather than a yearning for love. It had been a year since the Olivia Grant Foundation's inaugural ceremony. Once an unassuming library employee, Olivia was now a well-known philanthropist who was highlighted in the press. Warm red brick was used to create an inviting ambience at the foundation building, which was built in the heart of Greenbrook, North Carolina. Under the slogan, "For a Valuable Future," the organization offered low-income families educational help, counseling services for those with emotional scars, and protection for abused children. The foundation's main operations were influenced by Olivia's personal experiences. Many people were moved by her statement, "I want to create a world where everyone feels valued," which was published in the national news. In addition to making gifts, she kept spreading optimism by talking to kids and sharing her own stories. Walter Grant and Eleanor saw Olivia's actions from a distance. They were first unable to see her face to face because of guilt and remorse, but as time went on, their hearts started to shift. After rebuilding his business, Walter made a big shift in how he treated his staff. For the first time, Eleanor learned how to spend time with others when she started working at the neighborhood senior center. The most striking change was Vanessa's metamorphosis. Now, the volunteer activity she grudgingly started to fulfill, the conditional trust fund requirements, had grown to be a significant aspect of her life. She began working at Olivia's foundation, where she was very successful as a mentor to young people who felt like they were in the dark. She continued to like high-end clothing, but her eyes had a depth that had before been absent. 2 weeks before Christmas, Olivia made a surprising choice. She invited Vanessa and her parents to the foundation's yearly Christmas celebration. A big Christmas tree adorned the hall, which was crowded with foundation-supported kids and their families. Olivia said, "Thank you for coming," to her parents and Vanessa, who were standing tensely at the door. Her voice was one of calm power rather than coldness. "We can't change the past, but we can create the future." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. With a quiet nod, Walter appeared to be able to glimpse his daughter for the first time. Vanessa moved closer and grasped her sister's hand tenderly. Quietly, she added, "Thank you for teaching me." Olivia recognized the significance of those words. The whole family confronted each other on equal footing for the first time that evening. It was the start of a new relationship even if they hadn't fully reconciled. Another birthday came a few months later. This year's party was held in the foundation's courtyard, rather than at the parents' house or a posh restaurant. A charming celebration was hosted with the foundation's kids, and simple tables were set up. Now a key figure in the organization, Vanessa had started her own initiative. "What I learned from my sister is that the richness of the heart is more important than outward flashiness," she remarked, grinning at the audience. She exuded a real confidence that had replaced her previous arrogance. Olivia went back to her workplace by herself after the celebration. She grinned softly as she looked at the picture of her grandma Dorothy. "I have found the true wealth you taught me about." Her form was lit by the sunset coming through the window. She was formerly known as the moon, but now she glowed with her own light, which also continued to light up others. "I'm 34 years old today. You can call me Alexandra Gale." As I carefully fix my stylish and practical sports knee brace and meticulously perform the exercises recommended by my dedicated physical therapist, I take deep, steady breaths to help me focus. I begin to reflect on my past experiences. It was precisely 17 years ago that I gave up on my dream of playing professional basketball. The reason is that 17 years ago, after my father fell off scaffolding at a construction site and suffered a spinal injury that prohibited him from walking, he lost the financial foundation of our family. My mother started working part-time after being a full-time housewife, but it was insufficient to support our family. As a result, I declined a scholarship for college athletics in order to pursue better-paying work in a large city. I continued to support my family from a distance by sending the majority of my monthly salary to my parents, which helped with both my father's medical expenditures and our living expenses. When Hannah was still in middle school, I also took on the duty of ensuring that she could receive a quality education. For years, I prioritized the needs of my family over my own. 6 months ago, I was coaching at the Chicago YMCA during a charity basketball tournament. Teaching these children gave me a small sense of consolation when I gave up on my dream of becoming a professional athlete. I had to play on the court that day because there weren't enough coaches. Show us more, coach. The students cried excitedly as I made my signature drive and jump shot. A sharp pain shot through my knee as I touched down. I said, "It's nothing," to a standing coach. Just an old injury acting up. However, my knee had swelled up significantly by that evening, and by morning, I was experiencing problems walking. The doctor's diagnosis was grave. "Your anterior cruciate ligament is totally torn, Miss Gale. This is a brand new injury rather than a repeat of a previous high school injury. You'll require surgery." Surgery? I was taken aback. However, I work. I am unable to take time off. "You have no choice," the physician said coolly. "If left untreated, you could develop a walking disability in the future." My mother's support, my father's medical costs, Hannah's wedding planning, and now this procedure caused the room to spin. The expenses incurred out of pocket were not negligible. "How long will the recovery take?" I attempted to speak more quietly. "You won't be able to return to work for 1 to 2 weeks after the surgery, and full recovery will take about 6 months, the physician stated. I gave a mute nod and called my family to let them know I was well and could take care of all the hospital stay arrangements by myself. My breathing matched the steady drips of the IV on the day of the procedure. A shiver ran up my spine from the floor. A nurse smiled and remarked, "Miss Gale, your temperature is 98 degrees. Blood pressure is 110/70, all good," which helped to calm me down a little. "We'll move you to the surgery room in about 30 minutes. My mother's call vibrated on my smartphone. "I apologize for being unable to attend, Alexandra. I can't leave your father alone," she said regretfully. "But I will definitely call you once the surgery is over." The noises of physicians and nurses working in the corridor, as well as the laughter and conversation of other patients' relatives, were a contrast to the quiet in my room. "It's okay, Mom." I had to pretend to be upbeat. "I can manage on my own. It is not new." Whether I'm celebrating my first promotion or hurting my Achilles tendon during a high school basketball game on graduation day, it's always just me, strong, big sister, dependable Alexandra. After hanging up, I looked at the hospital bed ceiling, alone as usual. They thought I was always self-sufficient. The nurse came back to check my intravenous. She politely inquired, "Miss Gale, is your family coming?" "No," I said calmly, "but it's all right. I'm accustomed to it." She gave me a pitying glance but remained silent. As the backbone of the family, I had always been expected to be strong and never let to display my personal frailties. This healing time and surgery were no different. During a video chat, my physical therapist asked me, "How's the pain, Tyler?" while closely monitoring my movements. "It's better than yesterday," replied I, "but it's still hard to fully bend it. It takes time to recover from surgery to rebuild the anterior cruciate ligament. In particular, you tend to overextend yourself when you're alone. So take it easy," he said. I replied with a chuckle, "That's just my nature." I hung up the phone, sipped my coffee, and glanced at the screen on my phone. Hannah, my sister, left an unread message. "Alexandra, everything is ready for the wedding. Have you gotten the invitation? The date is June 10th. Be sure to attend." I grinned because I was most excited about Hannah and Daniel's wedding. It would just be a month away. After the difficult months of surgery and recuperation, I was very thrilled at the prospect of being a part of one of the most significant events in her life. "Hannah, I will definitely be there. I'm excited about it," I answered. After that, I relocated to my home office, It showed a folder called Hannah and Daniel Home Renovation Plans. With a satisfied smile, I arranged the bank transfer and reviewed the price from the renovation business. After they get married, Hannah and Daniel want to live with my parents. It is comforting to have young people close by, even though my father's status is steady. I plan to use the $50,000 I had set aside for the renovations to increase their living area, as a kickstart for my sister's new life and as recompense for my parents' years of assistance. Abruptly, my cell phone rang once again. It came from Olivia, my closest friend. Alexandra, have you seen Hannah's video? No, I have been occupied. What took place? Olivia's tone was urgent. Hold on, I'll send you the link. Olivia emailed me a link a few seconds later. Aunt Jenny's Instagram account was the recipient. I almost stopped my heart as I scrolled through. Videos and pictures from Hannah's wedding were shared online, showing Hannah in a white gown, Daniel grinning in a tux, and group pictures of parents, relatives, and friends. Last weekend was when the post was made. What? What does this mean? I didn't remember to breathe. Alexandra, you said Hannah's wedding is in June, right? Olivia's tone was a mix of surprise and rage. The invitation I received said June 10th. I was able to speak at last. Why? This is terrible. Why would Hannah act in this way? Olivia was speechless as well. My hands were shaking. June 10th is not the date. I wasn't invited, and the wedding had already happened. Alexandra, are you okay? Olivia's worried voice could be heard over the phone. I don't know, was all I could manage. I can't understand why Hannah wouldn't invite me. Olivia said, Alexandra, I'm coming over, right now. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I was so confused and hurt that I was unable to answer and hung up. I began to wonder what my family thought of me. Olivia was sitting in the living room of my flat that night, holding a glass of wine. I've made many calls to my family, but nobody has picked up. I said again, I don't understand. I am Hannah's sister. For her, I've done everything. The words, "You are an incredible sister," were spoken softly by Olivia. Remember how you covered Hannah's tuition at college? Additionally, you have kept up with your dad's medical expenses, enabling her to live on her own. My gaze was fixed on the window. Perhaps that is the issue. I've always been the responsible and powerful sister. Perhaps I wasn't required as a family member, only as a support system. I made the decision to go to my parents' place the next day. My pulse pounded as I arrived to the ancient two-story house. The visit was unexpected. I inhaled deeply before rapping on the door. Kathy, my mom, opened it. Her face lit up with surprise. Alexandra, how are you doing? Why are you standing here, exactly? What are you talking about, Mom? Confused, I asked. I'm Oak, of course. Rehab is going smoothly. My mother gave me a disbelieving look and gave me a hard embrace. Enter now. After traveling all this distance by yourself, why didn't you call first? I am going to brew coffee. Her look was one of surprise and excitement, not remorse. She didn't appear to know anything yet. Who is it, Kathy? My father said, seated in a wheelchair beside the window in the main room. It's Alexandra, remarked my mom. When he saw me, my father's countenance brightened. What, Alexandra? He rushed over to me in his wheelchair. You're supposed to be in the hospital, aren't you? Hospital. Why? Just then, Hannah and Daniel came out of the kitchen, obviously making some munchies. With her glasses in hand, Hannah froze in place upon seeing me, her face completely devoid of color and her glass tilted slightly. Alexandra, she said, her voice faltering. Daniel's glass broke as soon as he noticed me, dropping from his hand to the ground. Alexandra, is it really you? He was trembling too. How? Why? Hannah stood still, her lips quivering, her face whitened out, her eyes wide with terror. I gave her a close look. Hello, Daniel. Nice to meet you. I attended since I didn't receive an invitation to my sister's wedding. There was a thick quiet in the room. My mother asked, perplexed, What? What are you talking about? Alexandra, you were not invited. My dad leaned forward, looking puzzled. What does this mean? Hannah's terrified gaze flitted from Daniel to me and back to our parents. I said, I learned about it from Aunt Jenny's Instagram. The wedding footage. Last weekend was the date. However, you informed me that the wedding was scheduled on June 10th. What? My mom got to her feet. Hannah, what is this? Daniel glanced from me to his wife, seeming perplexed. He paused as he gradually came to terms with the fact that Alexandra was in critical condition, and the doctors hadn't allowed any visitors. Hannah took a step back. Well, I was. Is Alexandra critically ill? With firmness, my father inquired. We were unaware that her health was serious. Daniel's expression became confused and angry. Did you lie, Hannah? You mentioned that Alexandra's illness had gotten worse just before the wedding. Every day we prayed for you. After the procedure, you experienced problems, and you were unexpectedly unable to leave the hospital. That's what you said, Hannah? That family visits were being restricted by the doctors. I was trembling with wrath and incredulity. Hannah, could you elaborate? Did you inform your spouse that I was near death and that problems had caused a delay in my discharge? Hannah just stands there, her dread and shame dominating the room, unable to speak. Give an explanation, my father said. His normally composed voice suddenly shakes with rage. Hannah finally says anything. Daniel and I rescheduled the wedding. We desired a modest ceremony. What kept you from telling Alexandra? My mom insists. Hannah finds it difficult to speak. Just say it. I quietly insist. They are entitled to the truth. At last, Hannah starts to reveal everything. I didn't want Alexandra to have all the spotlight. I was worried that her tale might spoil my wedding. What? By that, what do you mean? Daniel's expression is one of incredulity. Hannah blurts out, it's about Alexandra's knee surgery. Everyone would be worried about Alexandra's recuperation, referring to her as heroic or selfless. I didn't want her operation and recovery to take up all of my special day. Silence descends over the room. This is how it has always been. Strong and trustworthy. Alexandra is frequently commended, particularly at family get-togethers. She is the center of attention. Daniel's reaction is one of disbelief as he glances at Hannah. Is it the true reason you made up the story that your sister was near death? For that, his voice is full of disgust. He pulls away from his wife and comes over to me. Alexandra, I'm really sorry. I didn't know. All I could think of on the wedding day was you. I had informed Hannah that immediately following the wedding, we would head to the hospital. Hannah, my mom's voice falters. You misled us. We trusted what you said since we couldn't cause a disturbance just before the ceremony. When guests inquired about Alexandra at the venue, we informed them that her release could not be sudden. My mother went on, you kept telling us that Alexandra was still weak and resting even after we tried to contact you. My phone broke, so I requested you to call me, but you stated it would take some time. My dad gives Hannah a disillusioned look. Why would you do this, Hannah? We are related. I get to my feet silently, disappointed and sorrowful. I had saved $50,000 for you, Hannah. It was for the remodeling of the home where you and our parents would reside. I show them the screen of my smartphone after taking it out and opening the banking app. The Hannah and Daniel Renovation Fund transfer reserve for $50,000 is shown. However, I now press the application's cancel button. I can no longer do it. Hannah's expression turns pallid. Please don't. We need that money, Alexandra. Daniel and I recently obtained a mortgage. That is your issue, Daniel says. I'm disappointed that you would do this, Hannah. He faced me. I apologize, Alexandra. You have been providing for the family for a long time. Therefore, I should have seen sooner that you were being treated this way. Daniel makes his way to the door. We should reconsider this, Hannah. It is terrible how you have treated your sister. Hannah, hold on. She goes after him. The room is thick with quiet. Alexandra, my mother replied, her eyes welling with tears. I was unaware. I understand, Mom. I reply tactfully. But Hannah and I are at odds over this. I believed that after everything I had given up for her over the years, she respected and valued me. My dad pulls his wheelchair up closer. Alexandra, I am aware of the sacrifices you have made since my accident. You haven't truly relished basketball, your aspirations, or your youth. I grab his hand and say, Dad, that's in the past. I have no regrets about it. For the sake of our family, I did it because I wanted to. But Hannah, my dad rambles. Hannah made her decisions, I said, and I'm making mine now. Olivia and I were enjoying breakfast at a cafe at the end of the week. Hannah was the source of the constant vibrations on my phone. Olivia inquired. I gave a nod. She and Daniel appear to be having issues. He has temporarily returned to his parents' home after being horrified by her behavior. She has been expressing regret to me when discussing money. How will you respond? I paused to reflect. I refuse to give her the cash. This goes beyond material possessions. It all comes down to respect and trust. Why? Olivia sipped some coffee. How can you tell whether Hannah is genuinely interested in mending the relationship or if she is only after the money? I'll take my time, I said gently in response. It will be obvious in time if she genuinely wants to change. As I performed my knee rehabilitation exercises and observed the sunset streaming in through the window, I pondered. My cell phone rang once more. It was Daniel this time. Alexandra, could I talk to you? I said, obviously. I want to start by saying I'm sorry for what Hannah did. Because I thought you were really ill, I helped her lie. I sincerely apologize. I paused before responding. Daniel, you were duped. Hannah bears the responsibility. Yes, we are now spending some time apart. Her behavior contradicts my morals. But I do love her, he added. She is admirable, yet occasionally she may be envious. I completed for him. That's how she's been since we were kids. She would pout whenever I received recognition for athletics. Yes, he said. I'm attempting to speak with her, if you get that. If she sincerely apologizes and makes an effort to patch things up with you. I let out a long breath. You're a decent guy, Daniel. Hannah must amend her behavior and express sincere regret. I plan to remain receptive if she is genuinely attempting to change. After my physical therapy session a month later, I was at a cafe using my laptop. A voice said, "Pardon me," and Hannah was standing there when I glanced up. Her eyes were weary and she appeared thinner than normal. In a quiet voice, she said, "May I sit here?" Confused, I gave a little nod and pointed to the chair across from me. We fell silent. Did you talk to Daniel? At last, I inquired. Hannah gave a nod. He advised me to examine my behavior and consider the important things in life. She gave a little smile. What you've always told me was similar to what he said. I remained silent, waiting for her to go on. She went on to say, "He's disappointed in me for how I treated you." Silently, I listened. But Hannah went on, "That's not all. I don't have the money to repay the loan we recently took out for the renovations. Daniel and I took out the loan together, but he hasn't paid it back since he moved out." From her purse, she took out a folded piece of paper. Take a look at this. It was a summary of their debt, including loans for new appliances and furniture they had bought, wedding costs, and the renovation loan. I returned the paper to her. What do you intend to do? Hannah declared that she had secured a second job. I've canceled the new furniture and limited. We sat in the lawn after the lunch. My mother related some local rumors, while my father discussed his new therapy. It appeared to be a typical family get-together. However, I continued to have reservations about Hannah. My father turned to face me as Hannah returned inside to assist my mother. He whispered, "Alexandra is making a sincere effort to change." I answered, "I know, Dad, but it takes time to rebuild trust." Naturally, my dad nodded. "However, I appreciate you giving her a chance." That night, as I drove home, I gazed up at the glittering sky. Hannah may be making an effort to change. She appeared to be trying to pay back her bills, patch things up with Daniel, and strengthen our friendship. At least I could give her a chance, even though I couldn't trust her completely just yet. I'll be able to tell in time if she has actually changed or if her situation has just surrounded her. For the time being, I keep watching her behavior in the hopes that she would demonstrate her resolve to me by her actions rather than simply her words.